cryptos and those that don't know how to navigate through Web3 to like make it easy for them to like raise funds in crypto and do anything they want to do. So that's basically it. Our next circle will be probably next month because the group is like engaging and a lot of people are suggesting we have another one next week, and we are considering if we can do that. But yeah, by next month we'll have another circle and we'll keep the energy going up and keep involving more people into our circle and try to contribute and make impact around the world and anywhere we can contribute. So that's it from my side.
Brother, thanks so much for your work. By the way, this is an interesting topic. We can get into this later if you guys want, but being able to have novel or different or unique funding mechanisms for folks in crypto, especially if they're working on projects that don't always easily get funding, or they're doing something like public goods, like we do at Logos. Having some forms of new forms of funding new funding mechanisms are vitally important. It also helps this is another topic, but it helps eliminate some of these zero-sum games that happen in this space around venture capital funding. And this is a topic that's coming up quite a bit, even here at Edge City, because there's consequences to doing VC style funding and then being a crypto company that accepts VC funding, right? There's always externalities for going that direction. But that's another topic we can get into in a moment. But Paschal, thanks for your work. Good stuff. I can't wait to hear more about how the development goes for what you guys are building and working on. I want to hand the floor over to Amelia or Chair, if you guys have anything additional to add. If not, we can also start thinking about a direction to go for a conversation. But remember, you guys in the audience, I know that there's some folks here who want to preserve their privacy and their anonymity, and we're going to be very respectful of that. So if you don't want to talk, totally understandable. But any of you guys who have something burning, by all means, come up. I do want to mention, just briefly though, just one kind of major rule. If you come up and talk, just try to keep it like topical, philosophical, related to circles. I think that's really important to keeping the value levels high in these spaces. So just a brief thought there. Okay, Chair or Amelia, if you guys have anything else, we also have OW coming up.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on what Pascal was explaining about FundBrave. It's a decentralized fundraising platform that the Circle in Benin, Nigeria are supporting. There are conversations happening about how we can deploy it on the Logos tech stack, or maybe even on Status Network, which is, of course, the zero fees L2 that's coming up. So I posted a link to Pascal's forum post under this Spaces link if you guys want to check it out. I think it's really interesting. Actually, this was a project Pascal was working on before he started the Circle. He proposed it to the group in the first session, and it's an open source project. It completely aligns with the Logos ethos. People were excited about it. So yeah, it became their winnable issue. And I think this is actually a really exciting way of finding winnable issues that are quite big, like building a platform or building a dApp and being able to actually achieve that, because Pascal was already kind of running this. So I think that's really, really great, and hopefully some inspiration for other potential Logos Circle stewards. And also, is Pascal going to start the first weekly Logo Circle? Like, let me know how that goes. What do we do if the demand is there and circles want to meet every week? Yeah, excited to see how that pans out. Do we need a Logo Circle hacker house, 24/7 circles? Corey, you're on stage. You can make this happen. You're the one.
Oh, I'm the one? Okay. Didn't know that was me.
Well, Pascal's dealing with demand for weekly Logo circles in Benin. And what if there's demand beyond that and we need a 24/7 Logo circle hacker house in Benin?
It's like when I think about trying to enable something like that, my immediate it's blurry, right? What is a hacker house? What's involved? Because it's such kind of a broad term, and it could be just someone's living room. It could be a dedicated space that's open all the time. Like it ranges. So like listing requirements on what it would take to get something like that started in whatever area you want to be in would be nice to start aggregating. And then from there, like if someone had resources in that area or us have resources that we can attribute, it's easy to just point them in the right direction because that stuff's already been kind of like, hey, we need this to get this started. And then how that gets fulfilled could be a number of ways.
Yeah, good point, Corey. And I guess it is true that how each community defines their quote unquote hacker house. I mean, that's also, you can just think of that as a residency in some contexts, right? Like here at Edge City, they have residencies who are just doing hacking for a month long in a pop-up village context. Yeah, go ahead, Chair.
Maybe you should write things down.
Bro, we are like, yeah, pen and paper. We are on that high tech road, my man. Trying to reach the pinnacle of technological achievement with our pen and paper. Love it. No, seriously, I think so. Cherry, you raise a really good point. And Corey, I guess, kind of touched on it. If he didn't touch on it, he touched on it mentally, and I read his thoughts telepathically. But it's this idea that a lot of folks in our organization have a tremendous amount of technical experience and technical acumen. And it's not even just the experience, but it's also the fact that innovation is actively happening within the context of the Logos organization, especially around zero knowledge cryptography. The work that's been done, and I think specifically because of my time at Codex, but the work that has been done on proof compression with zero knowledge is extremely impressive. And I think that this is just going to continue to happen until we achieve the kind of technology that we need. Actually, bringing this back around to circles, to empower these communities in a way that the current technology, the status quo technology, does not empower them, where there's a bunch of gaps in privacy, gaps in anonymity, gaps in security and civil liberties. And I think that what we're ultimately trying to achieve will unlock a whole new dimension, a whole new kind of dimensionality for progressing our communities in a way that makes them more resilient, more censorship resistant, more decentralized. I could keep naming the buzzwords, but I think you guys get the picture here that this is a very much an active activist organization, and that's why I love being here. I wouldn't be at any other place except this, and especially within the context of this space right now. By the way, okay, mini monologue over. We have OW up here. How's it going, my man? Welcome. I know that you are regularly on our spaces and you share some info. Do you have any thoughts or anything? You're more than welcome to chat or hang out. Welcome, friend.
Oh, hi. Thank you, Stanley. Hi, guys. I hope you're all good. I was basically just trying to give an update on what's going on in Nairobi, Kenya. We had a circle, our first circle meeting on the 21st of last month, and we're planning to maybe have another one in the coming week or maybe early in December, hopefully. So we're still trying to discuss on some of our winnable issues, but one of the things that actually came up in our circles was trying to indoctrinate some of our kids early, kids in school, on the principles and philosophy and the technology that is Web3. So one or a number of our members actually are doing a similar thing in the space. So we were thinking of maybe trying to collaborate with them and try to come up with methods to be more effective and efficient towards educating kids both in high school and also the lower levels. Yeah, basically that's one of our targets or our winnable issues for now, but we're still discussing to come up with more.
Right on. Yeah, thanks so much. And by the way, if you speak again, my friend, you have a bit of a glitch and a lag in your audio. I don't know if it's with your mic or the connection. You might look at that. But yeah, thanks so much.
Connection. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for sharing. And this was I wasn't able to catch all of that. So you might, if you don't mind doing a little mini type up in the chat, we can also read that out also in case someone else did not catch what you said as well. So, but thank you, OW. I caught
no
sorry,
sorry for my terrible connection.
No problem. Happens. Cool. So how are you guys feeling right now? I think right now it's probably, let's see, a good opportunity for me to reset the room. It is, let's see, we'll probably go for about another 40 minutes. We want to continue making sure that everyone here knows that this is an open space for you to come up and chat about your ideas, what you're working on, especially if it's regarding Logos and Logos circles. If we also want to get into philosophy and how it's pertinent, we can do that. You guys are welcome to come up as long as we keep it topical and laden with value. Other than that, what we'll do is probably 40 minutes. But if there is anybody who has anything they want to add to the conversation, please don't hesitate to come up and chat. Another thing that I do want to, oh, go ahead, Chair. Brother, you make a really good point. I talked, this is actually a conversation that came up at Edge City here a couple of times where we were discussing this notion that people don't read books enough anymore. We actually had this meetup that this lady had on. The idea behind the meetup was we need to change or think about looking at what the canon, quote unquote canon, of these pop-up cities, network states, cyber states, blockchain communities should be. Of course, the idea was that there should, or her idea, I think, was that there should be one canon, right? And what she means by canon is one guiding text or document or philosophy that pushes a community in a certain direction, that gives us its values, its memes, its shared culture, its identity. And of course, one of the things, of course, that happened in the room, she asked us to go around and talk about a book that had influenced us and that may be representative of canon. There were several guys who just said they don't read books, so they didn't have anything to offer in the context of a book. Sure, they had their information they're gathering from online, the video resources. If they happen to do part of an audio book, that's cool. And there's nothing wrong with that per se, but I do think it's really important and critical for people to continue to read, especially in a day and age where even if you're getting information online, it's possibly misinformation or adulterated or driven by AI. But if you have a physical book in your hands and you have that aesthetic connection with it, there's something about that that is irreplaceable, right? Something that connects deep with the human need to be engaged with another kind of, with a medium that is felt in the moment. And I think that's highly valuable. That's why I definitely keep my copy of Farewell to Westphalia plus my 2,000 other books that I have in my mini collection close at hand. Very important. But yeah, if somebody absolutely disagrees with that, by all means, there is merit in this notion of being an info junkie, where you're just constantly taking in different kinds of information and ideas, and that's valuable. But man, reading is a really hard thing to replace, or even want to think about replacing, at least in my life personally. So really good point.
I want to add a little context, like the little depth to that. Like, so a book is like a representation of a complex thought that you can't hold all in your head at once. And if I were to meter the lament from Chair, it's like you need to engage with thoughts and arguments that are deep. Whereas like most people's production or consumption of media is so surface level that you don't get the nuance of a complex argument. It's just this kind of like artificial representation of something that's much deeper. And it's really hard to not get a deep argument, conversation, point, or story from a book. A book gives you that. That's why it's like such a good representation of like, you need to go read. If you're not reading books, you're doing something wrong. But like, there's still content like that on the internet that has really good depth. And I think like, if you're going to focus on something, is making sure you engage with something that's nuanced and deep and complex, and shows that someone spent a lot of time on it, honing it and making it better. That has sufficient evidence to support whatever they're trying to do, or like enough backdrop to really give you a feeling of what they're thinking, versus a headline, which is what most people consume.
Yeah, go ahead, Chair. You're up.
Yeah, I got a blog post that like is the motivation behind why I write anything. Is it's a concept called writing to think, and there are like, in order to think deeply about complex topics, the argument is you have to write, because complex things or large problems that are worth solving are too big to hold in your head at once. And the process of writing it down not only helps you formulate it, but also it helps you expand on it such that you can grow an idea that's bigger than what you can just hold in your head, which is usually the types of things that can motivate others to care.
Corey, I feel like we had this discussion, but maybe we were like a wine or two deep into that discussion at one of the events. But I really actually enjoy that perspective. I think some of this too, and this maybe goes along with what you're saying. There's an attention economy issue where people's attention is spread kind of thin. I guess this is in the context of reading and also potentially writing for thinking, or if your attention is spread so thin, it's likely that the amount of information that you're going to consume is going to be minimized and continually minimized, almost to where it becomes a lowest common denominator kind of phenomenon. But I certainly would like to think that if people are, and I would think this is true for most of us in this space, most of the folks here are highly intelligent. They learn to parse information and to get and to look at information for what it is, and then to seek the truth and to look at alternative ideas compared to with what they're looking at. But being able to like attend to certain kind of information and know that its quality is good, I think is a key part of this process. And to me, that also resonates with what you're saying about thinking to write and writing to think and having this process, because it also allows you to figure out the detritus from the good stuff that's in your head, right? Or that you're thinking about. And it also gives you the impetus to go out and look for information that makes sense with what you're currently working on. I think the broader discussion here, of course, is about how can we access information that is quality, and how can we know what is quality versus what's not? And that, I think that's a really profound bit of discussion that we hit on here. By the way, if there is a moment of, it's kind of a funny thing when you do, if you guys are familiar with counseling and clinical psychology, if you get to a moment where there's a thought or somebody has an idea and then there's a pause or a silence, silence is perfectly acceptable in those contexts for people to process in the moment what has been said. So we're always going to give a moment and be okay with a little bit of awkward silence if we have to think about a particular topic. So I just want to say that that's an important thing to consider too. And if any of you guys, again, have thoughts or additional considerations, everyone is allowed a voice here.
Spaces are an interesting format, aren't they, for trying to have a conversation, because it's like being sat in a room with someone blindfolded and knowing when they've finished what they've said.
No, man, all good. You mentioned something there actually that is worthy of a prolonged discussion because it's something that we have talked about. You mentioned it. Web3 Privacy Now talks about it. A lot of people in our space are starting to consider it more, and maybe some folks disagree. And I know there are even folks in our community that have disagreed with this before, but this notion that there's a lot of people in the Web3 ecosystem, a lot of people in Bitcoin and crypto that are focused very strongly on the financial incentives. They're focused on when number go up, when moon, when Lambo. And you guys know this is something that I love to discuss because it makes me so angry, right? When I go into these spaces, and I go into a lot of spaces, I take a lot of time to go into different communities, check out what they have to say. And almost right away, when I log into that space, they have a good amount of audience in there, and they're just talking about technical analysis, which to me is just like occultism or astrology for dudes. They're just talking about when number go up, how can they read the charts, what do the charts look like, what does the future of the price look like. This is, man, this is, not only is this lame, but I feel like it's not speaking to the actual promise and an original purpose behind our industry, behind our ecosystem, right? And it's that, of course, that original purpose was a political purpose. We saw this in Bitcoin with the Genesis block, this idea of Chancellor on the brink of second bailout, right? That's a reason Bitcoin came out on the heels of the 2009 financial collapse. It was a scream, right? It was a protest. It was a denouncement of the traditional legacy system that we're not going to let you just take our money and do what you want with it. We're not going to allow you to rip us off either in a hard fashion or a soft fashion, right? Instead, we're going to take the power of financial responsibility and sovereignty back into our own hands. So I feel like there is a bit of a regression, right? When I go back into these spaces and people are just, this is the whole focus and everyone's in there discussing this. Whenever we had, and now of course, people in our community, and we had Mikola on one of the Thursday spaces recently, and we had a discussion about this, where this kind of focus, not only does it stay in people's minds that the amount of the token, whatever that token is or cryptocurrency, is important, but it also feeds in, at least on a subconscious level, this nihilism economy that also poisons the well of discourse within the cryptocurrency ecosystem. Now, where we have a situation where everyone is sharing these dark memes, it's all negative outlooks on the future, it's all vitriol and argumentation, and then it ends up coming back to the price, and it's just a vicious cycle, a vicious feedback loop. So bringing the positive outlook, bringing the idea that there are people like us who are out there working on civil liberties, who are really sensitive to the importance of privacy and anonymity. And that's, again, one of the reasons here is like, how can we get more, and here's the question, how can we get more people involved in this ecosystem, whether it's, and this isn't just logos, but any of us who are in this very small niche of working on privacy, of working on strong encryption guarantees in our technology, working on civil liberties. How is it that more folks would want to get involved in this space? Because sometimes it's very difficult to talk to these folks, but I feel like part of it is just that they haven't heard the message. They haven't heard the good gospel of privacy enhancing cryptocurrencies and the original purpose and use case behind what we're up to. So I'm glad you mentioned that, Chair, because it sent me off it always sends me into a spin cycle mode in my brain, and it's just so critical to address.
Mind if I share 2 cents?
Absolutely, Corey.
So, like, this is the way I see this, because you're not going to get rid of it. It's kind of like this type of behavior is like analogous to like social media and headline culture. It's just like surface level junk food that doesn't really allow you to engage with like what's going on. But like ultimately, when we built these networks, we're allowing like a quantification of value that couldn't be done before. Like it isn't zero sum game. We are generating value from things that were previously previously like valuable, but we didn't have a really good way to track it or trade it or like follow it. And so when you think about a token, like Bitcoin's a great example of this. Like the token has value because it's in some way like a proxy to the ideals of the network. And so like when you're tracking the price, you're looking at a market of like how valuable those ideals are. And hopefully the people who are tracking it, or the majority of the people who are tracking it, or the reason for its growth is because of the growth of those ideals and like how people find them valuable. And I think like the question is like, how do you do that? How do you get people to make that shift of when number go up? I don't know how the number works or why the number exists, to like a proponent of the ideals and tracking that. And like it actually being a good proxy for the ideals of whatever that token represents, or the network that has that token. And so I think that's the question, is like, how do you get people to understand the market they're actually watching, like the market of ideas?
Yeah, so this is going to be a good discussion, because maybe I partially agree with that, and maybe we'll need to get deeper into it. But I feel like even in some of these tokens where they're focusing on when number go up and they're really focusing on the price, I get your argument that there is a correspondence between the number and between the principles, right? But I think also one of the issues that we're dealing with is a lot of these communities in various ways have been hijacked. I'm still personally very skeptical that the Bitcoin ecosystem and the actors involved in that ecosystem have kept true to the original cypherpunk vision of what we're trying to achieve. And so in some ways, it could also be argued that the number is just corresponding with legacy financial values, where really all it is about is gains and getting into a position where you have unlimited wealth. But I will say this, Corey, and I agree with it. I agree with you on this perspective. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing inherently wrong with wanting to enrich yourselves, especially if it's at the expense of the legacy system. And that definitely is a part of the ethos. It also allows us to do the work that we're doing. Without crypto, probably a lot of us would not be here. So that is 100% true. It's just I guess the narrative or the storytelling part has gotten lost in translation. And now we have a situation where it's possible, and I won't make a hard claim here, but where it's possible where a lot of these ecosystems could get hijacked in various ways, even if it's not that you could shut down the quote unquote blockchain, but that you can hijack the edges of that space, leveraging the centralized exchanges, leveraging centralized protocols, leveraging KYC and AML. And so trying to figure out how to address that and get people to reconsider the original values is vital. But yeah, to your point, there's no fundamental issue with wanting to make yourself better off, especially in a predatory system. But by the same token, it's not just about making yourself better off. It's also about pushing towards some kind of value set that provides meaning, that provides hope, and that gives people a sense of direction beyond just the monetary value of a given token.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I've been in Bitcoin for a long time, probably early 2012 or so. And so because of that, I think I'm not as in touch with the current community of the ecosystems, because I still have kind of a very old style crypto mentality. But like, I think the meme token market, if you were to watch that, it's a great personification of what I'm talking about, where like we've detached the ideals or like any depth to a value, and it's about how it's simply community building off of a simple concept versus anything complex, where like the original idea of the Bitcoin and cypherpunk movement are very complex and large, and that was hard to proselytize. That was hard to spread the word and get people to understand, because it's difficult to get people to engage with complex topics. And you're right back to that. And finding that happy ground of like building something meaningful, but engaging with people simply is a really hard thing to try and figure out how to do.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, because a lot of the ideas on a even on a fund. First of all, so they're not always easy to articulate, at least not necessarily cleanly, especially if we start getting into the tech that's behind the values. And so it's possible that people get lost in it. It very much is easier to think of crypto as a lottery ticket a lot of times, and that this is the payoff for having a, bettering myself, my position, my family's position, etc. So that does make it 100% challenging. But then when you have people like Michael Saylor, etc., who have gotten into the space and their whole modus operandi is to institutionalize, right? Institutionalize crypto, then it is necessarily going to take a different turn, and the crowd that's going to be involved is going to, their gravitational pull is going to be toward that ethos and really away from where we're focused. But then there's also, of course, the risk, right? The risk adverse folks who don't necessarily even want to be in our space because they see what we're doing as either like a borderline wrong or potentially is an outlet to get folks in trouble, which has happened in some communities, even though very clearly that's not what we promote at Logos. But we would certainly say that these values on a fundamental level acknowledge the fact that our governance institutions, corporate institutions, and a lot of our society as it stands has started to fall apart. And this is the same case, of course, that Jared and Peter make in Fairweather, Westphalia. But of course, they also tinge it with the clear pill, the idea that now we have the technology and we have the mechanisms and we have the people to actually create a more bountiful future, not just in terms of our finances, but also in terms of governance, the way that we understand each other, the way that we coordinate. And so I do think that is a really valuable component of what we're all involved in, and creating the storytelling around this to get more people involved is absolutely critical. And I think right now actually is a good time. I'll do a little minor reset of the room again. I think the conversation that Corey and I are having is really vital, and probably not enough folks are having it. So trying to create a ripple effect so other people get involved with having this discussion is also important. And you guys in this room who are hearing this and want to be involved in this conversation, or if you have a take that maybe we don't have as well, don't hesitate to come up. Again, we're going to really promote that, because we do want this to be a community-driven space where it's not just sort of a couple of us from the top down in Logos giving the information or providing ideas that are just ours. Really, it's a community effort to come to terms with these ideas and to help spread them. So we want to make sure that's very clear with you guys. Sweet. Okay, so we have a nice little moment of silence there. Always important when we're discussing these ideas. What we can do now is I want to remind you guys that on Thursday, do a little bit of a reset of the room. On Thursday, we're going to have Funding the Commons, and we have a collaboration with those guys that have been ongoing recently. Had the hackathon, and Cherry, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if we're still doing some work with those guys on the ground in DevConnect. I can't recall. I think so, though, right? Yeah, nice. So those guys will be, and by the way, the founder of Funding the Commons, I've known him for a long time. David Casey is a good friend of mine. He's just an overall stand-up guy. He's been in the space many, many, many years. I think I actually met him while I was working with Bitcoin.com out in St. Kitts one day. He was there for a conference. Ended up being a really cool meeting. So it's going to be good to see him again. But they'll be on the ground with us at DevConnect, and also they'll be on the space on Thursday. Someone from their tech team, I actually forget his name at this point. He'll come and join us, and I think we're going to have a really good conversation about what those guys have going down, about our relationship, about what we're going to do in Argentina, and about how we can continue to collaborate into the future. We'll probably even get into privacy and Tor a bit as well, because I know that's close to their hearts also. And something that is related to the conversation Corey and I were having is that we do definitely something we have to keep doing and do really well in this space is do coalition building, where we're constantly nurturing each other's ideas. We're constantly helping each other with our technologies. We're doing cross-pollination with development and engineering. We're also working out the idea space and figuring out how we can move into the future and spread each other's ideas and continue to work together. And that's the exact reason why Logos in our organization, broadly speaking, continues to engage with the community at large. It's the reason that I'm right in Argentina right now at Edge City, helping to not only promote Logos and our brand of localism, but also to connect with like-minded thinkers in the space who may want to work with us as well. Speaking of which, you guys know that we have Parallel Society event coming up in Lisbon, I believe on March 7th. You guys correct me if I'm wrong. It's a 2-day event. The first day is going to be an unconference where our co-collaborators will be able to set up shop in whatever way that they see fit, have panels or talks. And then the second day is going to be more of a festival day where there's going to be like open air art installations, DJs, DJ sets, music. You could probably even do something like poetry reading. I imagine the options are fairly endless for the festival day as well as for the unconference, because we want it to be more grassroots, more underground, more protest driven, and we want to bring people in who don't often get their ideas or their artwork or their writing or their technology looked at by other people. So if you guys want to be involved, by the way, of helping us out with Parallel Society, please don't hesitate to reach out to us and we'll put you into contact. It could be as high as helping sponsor the event, working very directly with us, or it could be just coming to the event, being a member and checking it out, checking out the talks and being part of it. So however you want to work with us, just please reach out to us. I'll also post the link. We can post the link in the Megatron so you guys can sign up on Luma. Highly recommend it. So we did one event, by the way, last year. It was really the flagship event was in Bangkok. Turned out to be fantastically well. I actually hosted a panel with Kevin Owocki and our friend Michelle Bowens. It was just a fantastically memorable experience, and most of us were there on the ground. And it was actually a really chaotic night, the night that we had the event, but the venue was on point, very very on brand, on aesthetic, and felt really good. So do you guys prepare for that? It's going to be a lot of fun. So did I miss anything or get anything wrong? To your knowledge, Chair, I think I got hit the broad points.
Yep. So 6th and the 7th are the dates. So there are 2 days. Bitcoin on day one. Like Sterling was saying, we're looking for coalition partners to help organize the day. And I think that's really interesting, right? We're not just having panels or talks. It's really up for people who want to collaborate with us and plan what the agenda is going to look like. So it could be something really out of the box, right? It could be could be a workshop, it could be a little mini hackathon in the day. We're really looking for partners who are aligned with Logos, if it's like a privacy project, an open source project, to plan and collaborate and create what does this grassroots technology movement look like as well. And day one is also completely free. There will be no cost for a ticket. And I have seen the lineup for day 2, and it's wild international headliners. I'm super excited. And I think we're going to be ready for the first announcement in about a week for the act. So keep you guys updated on that.
Yeah, super cool. I think probably we're going to even go well beyond the last event, and this is going to be just an amazing a couple of nights to remember. So yeah, again, Amelia hit the high points there. You guys want to join in and help us, you can. I have a few people actually here at Edge City who are interested. Even I spoke with Timur, who, of course, you guys know we hosted him, and he's been a friend of mine and a friend of Logos for a good while. They might be interested in also being involved. So there's a few folks. Also, the Side Out guys, they said that they might be interested. And so no promises on any of this, but we certainly have drummed up interest, and it makes sense because of the quality of the event that we had last year and the quality that we're continuing to keep very high with the programming of the event, which is all, of course, going to be co-collaborated with a bunch of different folks. It's just going to be amazing. So I can't wait to go to, and it's in Lisbon. Like, who doesn't want to go to Lisbon? Just an amazing place in the world, especially with all the work that Amelia is doing there as well.
Yeah, I would love to set something up in this community center that we just were able to establish in Quinta do Mocho. To have some side events there, or Louisa had a really good idea about inviting the musicians and artists from day 2 if they want to do workshops, because you've heard me say this a million times, but there's a lot of untapped underground artistic talent in Quinta do Mocho. So yeah, it could be something really interesting, because the artists that Louisa has kind of chosen and reached out to, they're known for their grassroots activism, and they were kind of, as well as being amazing global artists, they have this kind of empowering undertone and narrative to the music and the work they do. So yeah, I'm really excited about figuring out how we can bring the artists and bring anyone from day 1 as well, from the Unconference or any of the Logos CCs that would like to be involved in Quinta do Mocho or giving something back. Having some side events or organizational days, workshop days there in Quinta do Mocho as well.
Beautiful, beautiful. Cool, guys. Well, I think right now is a good time for us to start winding down the space. I think we had a really fantastic conversation. I do want to reiterate this, and we can have a bit of a talk about it as we start to wind down here if you want. But again, this space that we have on Tuesdays is very much dedicated to the community as much as it is just generally to understanding what we have going on in Logos Circles. Because really, Logos Circles is about community. It's about local communities. It's about the way that they connect, the way that they engage, and also it's about the idea that they have agency to create change in their communities where their governance institutions have largely failed. So having discussions, I think, around those local failures in various cities and locales around the world is going to be really important to helping us figure out sort of directionally where we can focus our energies at Logos, right? Because we have the material resources, the people resources, the connections, the pipelines, and thanks to Amelia, a lot of really powerful documentation on how we can form these up. And now we have case studies as well. So being able to unlock a special kind of community, a new kind of community in local areas, is going to be transformative in many different ways. And I think a lot of those ways are right now or heretofore unforeseen. So we're really creating a whole kind of new institution on a grassroots level and we're doing this, by the way, in conjunction with this whole parallel society movement. So it really is about more parallelization for the fact of people to find their culture and their community to create change. And unless you guys have a comment, I'll tell just a little bit of a historical story about how this has happened in the past. All right, sweet. So you guys are probably one of the ideas that have influenced me quite significantly, and I know has influenced Jared as well, is the Velvet Revolution. So what happened in Czechoslovakia from starting in the 60s and into the late 80s, I think 1989 was its culmination, is this quote unquote parallel polis movement. So in the 60s, of course, throughout the 60s and into the 80s, the communist regime had taken over in Czechoslovakia, and they became very oppressive, as communist regimes are like to do. And what ended up happening throughout this time frame is people like Volkov Benda, Václav Havel, and Ivan Hiros, they got together and they said, we don't have to physically resist this government or this regime. We don't have to get violent. Instead, we can create what they called a quote unquote second culture, or a parallel polis, to give a space for living. This is kind of the terminology. They live space for living for people who don't want to tolerate that system anymore, and they want to have their own space for being able to push back against these particular systems in a way that is peaceful and that is nonviolent. And one of the very first things that they did as they created this parallel polis is they passed around what they refer to as samizdat. So the communist regime had been censoring a lot of their material, a lot of cultural material and documents. And so through samizdat, they reprinted and republished this material in the form of zines and other types of documents that they spread around to the people so they could get access to information that they didn't previously had. Well, the beautiful thing about this is the culmination of this activity. Well, it really culminated in the signing of Charter 77, which was a formal document that brought all of these folks together for the hope of a regime change. And it ended with the Velvet Revolution and the communist regime peacefully abdicating its power. And this is effectively a Czechoslovakia became the Czech Republic, right? Václav Havel, I think it was Havel. I always get Havel and Benda confused. Actually became the president of the Czech Republic at this time, and the communist regime formally ended in Czech. And they did this all peacefully. It kind of reminds me a little bit of what Mahatma Gandhi called a satyagraha. Satyagraha is this idea of peace force, being able to push back against systems that are inherently potentially violent, and being able to do this in a way that musters moral courage, in a way that has a spirit and emotional connection built into it. So I think it's a beautiful thing, and it's certainly something that is not, it's a piece of history that's not talked about a lot. And I've spoken about it a couple of times here at Edge City, and people were largely unfamiliar with it, unless you're, and I have even heard of people being from Czechoslovakia or the Czech Republic and not knowing about this particular piece of history, which I think is just wild and kind of speaks to how the public education system has ironed itself out. But anyway, so I wanted to share that piece of history with you, and I think that's something that very much has influenced a lot of the ways that we think about creating these logo circles and having these parallel sort of poli crop up to solve a certain set of problems around a winnable issue. And man, it's a beautiful thing, and I'm really happy to be here with you guys. Any other comments on that? If I missed something, or if I got a fact wrong, by all means, you guys correct me or chat if you want. Dope. Good stuff. Thanks for the correction there, Chair. Pascal again. Okay, so I think we're closing up now. I just want to thank all of you guys for your really hard work, especially you folks who are working on circles. And really here in Edge City, this was my first time to, I mean, I've held meetings, of course, before on behalf of Logos. I was involved in the early days, right when we had Logos cells, right? Or Logos Assembly. And now we have a very much a more targeted and well-defined strategy, thanks to Amelia and the team. And so hosting these circles here was a very powerful experience for me. And the community involvement component, it feels really good to connect with folks and to get an understanding of what their issues are. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. I also want to thank Paschal, of course, for being here and pushing this agenda forward. Amelia, keeping the Logos Circles and Quinta Damasio in Lisbon moving forward. Fantastic. Girl, thanks for your work also getting ready to boot up in Porto. I want to thank all the regulars who come in here, Tiger, Godfrey, D. Clinch. Thanks for being part of it. Also, Corey was in here. We'd like to thank Corey for showing up. It was a beautiful space. We got a lot done, but we have much more work to do. We're going to continue to do these on Tuesdays and continue to focus on the community and continue overall to grow this movement. So all of you guys are very much appreciated. Let's continue doing the hard work because, of course, as we've talked about today, there's a lot of people who are involved strictly in the financial side of crypto and Web3, and there's a lot of people who are just still, they don't even know about crypto. They don't even know about Web3. It's incumbent upon us to get people into this space and then to understand the values and all, but not even that, just understanding that they can contribute to their local communities and they can have agency and they can create change. They don't have to be embedded in the meaning crisis. They don't have to be tucked in so deeply at night in their beds. They can actually contribute to change in the world. And that is, not only is that meaningful, but it's powerful because now you can actually engage in the real world work of creating transformative change around the globe on a local level. So thanks again, guys. An amazing space. If you guys have any final words or thoughts, we'll go ahead and move this on to the next day. We'll continue booting up Logos Circles to do this again on Tuesday, and then we'll do it again, of course, on Thursday with the guest. Did I miss anything, guys?
Negative.
Cool. Looks good. All right, let's go ahead and close it down. Let's keep fighting the good fight. I think we have a lot of good work to do. We have new people coming into the spaces all the time, and we want to continue to set people